You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone podcast alongside Mike Chappell and Matt Adams. I'm Dave Griffiths. Glad to have you along as the Colts are number one in the AFC South. 2-1 after 3 weeks. Solo, alone, atop the standings in the division right now through the first fifth of the season, a little bit less than that even. But nevertheless,
17 games messes it up.
It does.
Percentage-wise.
Just screwing with me here. But something to celebrate. And hey, I'll be honest, there's a lot to feel good about this week if you're a Colts fan. I think that after last week's win in Baltimore, that gives you a real shot in the arm for multiple reasons. And so I think there's a lot for us to be positive about today. We won't gloss over issues by any stretch.
And there were issues.
Yes, there certainly were. But the positives way outweighed the negatives because you went into Baltimore, Chap. You got to win. You beat Lamar Jackson, who did much worse things to this team just 2 years ago. And you kind of established yourself as a team that's not one of the bottom of the barrel teams right now in the NFL, at least early on in the season.
All of us picked the Ravens for what that's worth. Anyone outside of the complex, I wonder how many people in the complex really thought, if I had to put $10 on this game, I will say my grandson picked the Colts.
There you go.
But he's like 11 and he always picks the Colts.
He's smarter than us.
And Kevin Bowen's infant son grabbed the Colts helmet.
Hey.
So, but yeah, it's about winning. Winning ugly, and they didn't win ugly. They won, whatever the term is, but they won. I go back to the last time they were in Baltimore and they lost in overtime because their kicker didn't make a kick for whatever reasons, whatever the reasons. So make plays, win games, and you move on. And I haven't had a chance to look over Matt's syllabus here. I apologize, but it's a sole possession of the division lead for the first time since we looked it up week 7 of 2019. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time they've had sole possession of the division lead with their teams playing the same amount of games since 2017. So with every other team in the division struggling, Jacksonville.
Yikes.
I mean, are they Jacksonville? I mean, are they back to, there's Jacksonville.
There it is again.
So you stay there, and one of the funny storylines is, with every win, you're hurting your draft positioning. Yes, but you can't worry about that. You can't worry about, maybe you're going to be drafting not 3rd or 4th, but 20th. Well, if that's what it is, then fine, and you make do with it.
And my point with that has always been, and Matt, you can correct me, or if you feel something different, that's not the coaches or players' job.
No.
0%.
Tell DeForest Buckner they're hurting next year's draft position.
Yeah, if you want that from the highest level of the highest level in the organization, if Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard have their eyes on 4 years down the road and they think they're trying to build this thing for that's their job, okay, to trade away good assets for future picks and then build that way. And so if any complaint that the players or the coaches are playing or coaching too hard is a ridiculous claim, and it always has been.
It's not, I don't want to relitigate last season, but it's not like they went and traded for Matt Ryan because they knew they were going to just race to the bottom of the standings last year.
True.
This was not the plan that they had wanted.
Yeah. So this past week, as the Colts beat the Ravens in overtime, 22-19, they did so without rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson, without 3-time Pro Bowl center Ryan Kelly. I was there. It was a very boring 3.5 quarters, and then it got very interesting late and was very exciting. It was a grinded out game. It was like a typical Steelers-Ravens game, where yards are hard to come by.
It's going to look ugly.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly, where field goal kickers matter, and they certainly did in this game. I'm telling you, that Justin Tucker field goal, there wasn't a single person in that stadium who thought he was going to miss that kick, and he shorted it. If he had 1.5 more yards, if they were that much closer, he would have made that kick. It looked like it fell just short from my vantage point in the press box. And then Matt Gay goes out and proves why the Colts gave him the contract they did. And that was something that at least I questioned. I remember in the offseason talking here on this podcast being like, why are you spending money here? Albeit it's not a ton of money. It's not like you're opening up the bank $25 million a year for a wide receiver, but you're paying a kicker making him the second highest paid kicker in the
In
league.
a rebuilding year.
In a rebuilding year, when you had a decent guy last year in Chase McLaughlin too, who didn't do anything to lose the job when he had it here.
Right.
He certainly stabilized things after they let go of Hot Rod after week 1 last year. So it was just a puzzling decision to me. But he goes out there and he kicks 4 50-plus yard field goals. The last one, they were right down Broadway for the most part. It was perfect. It was right on target. It was with plenty of leg. You never had to worry about the leg with any of those kicks. Such a different thing from years past. And also, it highlighted a difference in coaching philosophy from this game to what we've seen in years past too, Chap, that Frank Reich was always one to go for it in a lot of those situations. What if you had 4th and 4, 4th and 6? Exactly.
Right.
And if you had this kicker, it might have been different. And I think that's an important point to make as we're analyzing why this game went down the way it did so differently than it did for Colts games in the past.
Yeah, and we asked Steichen on Wednesday about how this changed, how having a kicker that, one, you trust, and 2, can routinely knock down 50 yards. I think Gay is like 75% or 76% on 50-yarders.
Right.
So the problem, what you don't want to get into is to get complacent when it's 3rd and 6 from the 40 or whatever. You still want to be aggressive, but at the same time, tell your quarterback, we've almost got 3. Don't throw a dumb pass and don't get a sack, but be aggressive. But when you know you're going to come away more than likely with 3, it just changes your approach. Maybe you're not overly aggressive because you don't trust your guy. So, yeah, I wasn't one of those that was up in arms about signing him, primarily because, again, you're talking, was it $5 million a year, which,
right.
It's in roster building, whatever. And McLaughlin was pretty good last year.
He was.
He wasn't trash. But I guess maybe they looked at when you're going to have a team that may struggle in games, scoring points consistently and all this, and you need these. And at the end of the year, this is a game you're going to look back and say, maybe this puts you where you are at 10-7 or whatever. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the schedule, this schedule is conducive to a good start if you are a decent team.
Mm-hmm. And if you build momentum, that helps you late in the season. You get some confidence in your rookie quarterback. You get the defense cooking, and the defense has been playing pretty well.
They're playing well.
Mm-hmm.
Secondary still, I'm not sold on. Front 7 is playing really well.
In this game in Baltimore, they certainly shed the perception, and what had been really the first 2 weeks. Week 1 against Jacksonville, give up 14 points. Week 2 against Houston, you give up 10 points. Last time you play Baltimore, we all know what happened in the fourth quarter and overtime with this defense giving up a big lead
Make
at
a
that
play,
time.
and they
Exactly, and they couldn't
one.
do it. Just one play throughout the second half of the third quarter, all the fourth quarter, and
22-3.
overtime.
It was 22-3.
Yes, it was awful, and they did the exact opposite in this game. They bowed up. They held Baltimore.
4 series. How many series where they made a play?
And you had to, because if they got 10 yards further, you're in Justin Tucker field goal range. It was thrilling because both teams were playing around midfield. If they were they were trying to get that to field goal range.
Didn't Harbaugh pass up a mid-60s?
Yes, he
did.
And
he punted?
Yes, he did.
And, of course, maybe later he would have gone for it.
It was a bit longer than the field goal that Tucker had already missed.
He missed 61.
Yeah, and I think it would have been like 64, 65 yards somewhere in there.
But he's kicked a 66.
Exactly.
So
he's got the leg to do it.
Yeah.
But again, that's where you know that if you miss, the game is virtually over.
Right.
So
yes. So you can make a case for the reason why. Offensively, on the other side of the ball, it was not a banner day for the offense. I think they had 2 first downs on the drive, like once.
They had more than 2 out of 16.
There you go. 2 times out of 16.
Right. More than 2
on their drives. More than 2 first downs. So it was not a game where the offense moved the ball freely, but it was a game where they got they grinded out the yards to get enough to get Matt Gay in range. If you're talking about offensive MVP for this game, I think you can make a couple of you can make some arguments for different guys. Obviously, Zach Moss has the stats with 30 carries. Like, he was the workhorse for sure. With
5th Colt since '99 to have 30 carries in a game.
122 yards on the ground. Caught a 17-yard TD pass as well.
That was a great throw.
Gardner Minshew goes out and is efficient, if not electric, for sure.
There needs to be a better word than efficient, because Say efficient then.
Okay. Yeah, well, you could think about it, and we'll come back to it.
I'll think of a better word.
Exactly. Gardner.
Serviceable.
Workmanlike.
But he did have a safety that he gave up as well, which was not good.
And Orlovsky.
At the same time, you're kind of glad he had that safety because he got stripped.
But that came with like 3 minutes to play.
It did, yes.
And that shows you how well the defense played.
And in Baltimore this week, on the Baltimore, Purple Zone podcast, whatever they have over there, they're complaining that they fair caught that kickoff, that punt afterward, because that's the big thing there. Is if he doesn't fair catch that punt, there's a good chance that Baltimore can get the ball, can move it forward, can wind down the clock, and win this game. So anyway, we don't have to get into that because this is the Colts Blue Zone podcast, in fact, where we were talking about them. But like I said, Zach Moss, one candidate. You can argue Minshew as well. I think that Michael Pittman needs to be in consideration for an offensive MVP for this game with 9 catches, 77 yards. I mean, those are closer to last year's numbers. It's not great percentage-wise, but he caught that huge 34-yard pass in overtime that helped flip the field. And he recovered a massive fumble.
Saved him 3?
Exactly.
Maybe 7 the way this,
And in this game, you saw how important every single point was. So between Zach Moss and Michael Pittman, there's the 2 players who had really good games. Josh Downs chipped in with 8 catches for 57 yards. He's becoming Jack Doyle.
He's going to be a player.
when he gets more in tune with the offense and route trees and reading coverages.
He's got a 60-yarder in his future.
Yeah, you got to figure it's going to happen eventually when he gets a little bit of space. But there were a couple of decent performances on offense, even though the big points at the end of drives weren't always there.
Yeah, I'm going to write about Pitt later today, and Steichen brought it up. Was it Monday? I think it was, where he said he's a definition of toughness. And he is. It's just he takes some big shots, but he seeks out contact. Mm-hmm. He does, and it's just the way he said he grew up. Not how he was raised, but how he grew up. But he's on pace for 141 catches. And I realize, that's the guy you hate. The guy on pace for after 3 games. But he's averaging 8, a shade over 8 in each game. He even said today he needs to stretch the field on some of those, and he does. But go back to the first game, that 39-yard bubble screen, that was speed. Mm-hmm. That was speed. It's just so hard to gauge the downfield passing because they're not doing a lot of it yet. Certainly not with Minshew, you're not. But he played well. Those 2 plays, each one you could argue saved the game. Because, again, if he doesn't get on that ball, which was aided primarily first by Quentin, and then Minshew got in there to mess up the Ravens' recovery. But if he doesn't make that 34-yard catch, but it might have been interception. But if not, again, you punt probably. That was a second down. But, then they've got the ball at midfield again. So, I thought he's a guy that they can have a really, really tough decision at the end of the season. This is a contract year.
Yes, it is.
And you say you want, boy, we need more than we need, the Justin Jefferson guys. Well, there's not a lot of those guys around. But, as important as he is, you're going to pay him.
Because somebody's going to pay him.
Somebody,
I think. That's the thing.
We won't go down this rabbit hole too deep, but this is why he and JT have handled this contract year totally different. Because Pitt knows he's going to get paid. If not here, somewhere else.
Right.
And the problem with the Colts is if you don't pay him, you will pay more than that to replace him.
Right.
And with somebody you don't know. So good for him. He's a great kid, a great player.
24, 25 years old, however old he is.
I know. You wish he was
1-2 kids already, and I think he has 2, right?
I know.
Yeah, he just had a second this year.
He's going to be like Miles Turner with the Pacers. You're going to pay him a load of money. You want more. Well, understand that this is who he is. Mm-hmm. Maybe I think it would behoove the coaches to find a way to get more deep opportunities, and that's on the coaching staff.
Right.
But I think he's a really, really good player, and he's given them what they need so far. It's going to be fun watching how this thing goes with him because he's getting 7, 8, 9. Well, he's getting like 10 targets a game as well.
What goes against players like Michael Pittman is Colts fans remember in the past what they've had. Like they saw Marvin, they saw Reggie for years. Even T.Y. Like T.Y. set a pretty high bar too. And there was always a debate with T.Y. Is he a number one or is he not?
I was on the fence as well.
Exactly. And then later in his career, I think you came around on this podcast. Even you've talked about realizing that just the value that he added to the team. And so you see what the Colts had, and you judge by that. You judge
Which isn't fair.
No, it's not. And by him against other people in the wide receiver room, which is, let's be honest, pretty lacking right now. Alec Pierce has not done a whole lot so far this year. You have Josh Downs, who you're optimistic about, but is a completely different player than Pittman
really
is.
Nothing.
McKenzie's not a game breaker by any stretch of the imagination. So you put him out there as like, hey, why don't you take this next step? Take this next step. And for a player who is contributing, as I have just been saying over the past 5 minutes here, considerably to the win, like, be grateful for what he is,
right, and not worry about what he isn't.
Yeah, you can want more, and that's fine, but don't judge him by that standard that you set by wanting more, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Other side of the ball, defense. The Colts forced a couple turnovers, a sack fumble by Taven Bryan, I think it was, to get the ball, and then Juju Brents, Indy zone, punched the ball out from Kenyon Drake. Big hustle play.
Huge play.
On that series, like I was tweeting about this as it was happening. Like, Juju came in the game for the first time as the third corner, and they started going after him. Like, they started throwing the ball his direction. They made a couple completions, and this one, look, it was on his side of the field. He gets the catch, Kenyon Drake does, turns upfield, and Juju's right behind him hustling to get there, and bam, just knocks it out from behind. He recovers it, too, which was a really great play as the ball's right over there by the sideline.
About the 20-yard line?
Yeah, so they were going
to score something.
Yes, they were. They were already well within Justin Tucker field goal range there. So great to see that from Juju. And then for the rest of the game, I can't recall him giving up any major plays. So I think that really helped him to get a big splash play on his very first drive out there. Maybe it was his second drive. I can't remember for sure. But it was an early point in the game, in his first game. Like, you get out there, you've got the butterflies for sure. You've grown up loving this team. You run out of the tunnel with the horseshoe on your helmet for the first time. Your heart's racing at 1,000,000 miles a minute. And you get this big play that can really settle you in and give you some confidence. And the Colts do need that. Like you said earlier, you're not sure how you feel about the back end of this defense yet. If Juju can be the player the Colts want him to be this year, that would be a significant step forward in shoring up a little bit of the back end, because the front seven has been playing pretty good throughout the first 3 games of the season.
We were talking in the press room about why did it take until week 3 to get him out there, and we asked Gus Bradley last week what's holding up, and he just said reps. We have to remember how much he didn't play in preseason. He didn't play at all in off season at all with the wrist, and then he had the hamstring. So, and Gus just said he needs reps. Well, didn't get him reps.
Didn't get him some.
Didn't get him some. So, and also, these are pros, so they can take criticism. But I thought people have been a little bit harsh on Darryl Baker, because he has struggled. Well, this is the team putting him out there.
Yeah.
His first defensive snap of his career came in the opener.
It did.
So, yes, he struggled, and yes, he went from starting 2 games to being a healthy and active, but this is a case of, the team knew what they didn't have at the position, the entire position, and they did nothing to fix it when Isaiah Rodgers was, whenever that was it June?
I think it was before.
It may have been before OTAs.
It was before OTAs.
So
I remember that was a thing during OTAs.
You knew. So, and I still think they're not happy with the way the secondary's playing. Totally happy, but I think Juju is going to be a major contributor. You see him walk through the locker room, and my goodness, you talk about length.
Yeah,
he's not the kind of corner we normally see here.
Right.
And he's active. He's quick. He's got that length, and good for him. And you always have to, you always be careful, because sometimes the second game out is not to the level of the first game.
Of course.
So, but he's a keeper, and the more he plays, obviously, the better he's going to get.
And I think, Matt, that's just going to be the thing with the Colts this year. Like Chap alluded to, the highs are going to be high. The lows, I think, are going to be low. We've got a good high right here after week 3. A win at Baltimore, a playoff caliber team, an MVP type quarterback. If you have a rookie quarterback and rookie players like a Juju Brents, whatever that you're relying on, their ceiling, you're going to scratch that ceiling at times. And you hope that those ceilings, like, everybody kind of plays it coming together and you can put it all together. And that's what they did in Baltimore. But if they have lows at the same time, then it's going to be tough to watch.
But
you're going to have that patience.
And they're going to have that game.
Yeah. you got to figure they're going to have that game at some time. And that doesn't take away from what they're able to accomplish in Baltimore.
Well, I mean, it really just goes back to just think back to the Jacksonville game. They were up in that game. It looked like they were going to be able to carry this thing home, and then you give up a punt return, your rookie quarterback throws an interception, and then suddenly that swings all the way around. So that's a very salient point, that you're going to have moments that you're going to be really high on this team, and then you're going to kind of hit the floor with them a little bit.
Does the Jacksonville game go differently if Zach Moss is playing?
I think so.
Right.
I absolutely think so, because they got nothing out of that running game.
Yeah.
So, but it's what's interesting, and it's going to be interesting all year, is to watch the growth of players, but watch the growth of the team, because it's. And let's not get on their bandwagon. Somebody actually mentioned Super Bowl when they were please
Pump the brakes.
What?
Okay,
No,
stop.
don't pump them. Pound on them.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Stand on the brakes.
Get back with us in 10 weeks and we'll see.
Right.
But you have to be encouraged by what you've seen, with the fact that the quarterback has played 5 quarters. Mm-hmm. So let's just see this thing grow, and hopefully the arrow's still going up. And again, this schedule, the next 2 home games, the Rams and Tennessee. Tennessee, what are they?
They haven't done anything to make me go, wow.
So if you play well, and we in the media, we always look at this, but take care of business and see where you are in 2 or 3 games.
Mm-hmm. There's one point I'll make before we move on a bit, and that's, I think the front 7 has been the strength of the Colts so far through the first couple weeks of the season. 12 sacks is the second most in the NFL, and QB.a has a sack in the first 3 games. I tweeted this out earlier this week. Of all the players in the NFL, there are six who have at least 1 sack in 3 games. That's it, just 6 players. QB.a is in the same breath as T.J. Watt, who is dominating so far earlier this year. Micah Parsons, not bad.
See, pretty decent players.
Matt Judon, who Colts know is pretty good from last year. Danielle Hunter with the Vikings. Danico Autry with the Tennessee Titans.
Love to have him back here.
Seriously.
Yes.
And then QB.a. Those are the 6 players who have at least 1+ sack in the first 3 games of the season.
It's not a criticism, but with QB, I get the impression he's never going to be that flash sack guy. He's just going to be the lunch pail guy that at the end of the game you say, you had a sack and a half and 5 tackles. And his issue to this point's never really been production.
Right.
It's been staying healthy. And there have been some games he's played where he's not been 100%. So doesn't he? I think he's also got a couple of fumble recoveries.
I was just going to mention he has a couple of fumble recoveries.
We talked to Michael with Pittman. Well, he said, I was just there on that one. Well, but it's funny how guys who were there are always there.
Yeah, it comes down to hustle.
I think Quiddy's going to be a guy that is, you're not going to see the flash, the blind side. I think he's just a work pail guy, and that's great. And if he gives you, 10, 11 sacks? Mm-hmm. I think you said 12 sacks. I think 7 players have sacks.
Yep.
That's just, you want there to be a guy. Samson, I mean, holy smokes. He's played well. Ebukam,
yeah.
I keep wanting to transpose word. But that's I never liked backs by committee, sacks by committee, because that normally says you don't have a guy. Mm-hmm. But if you get this kind of production, front 7 has played, this last game, Buckner and Grover didn't do a lot because they didn't really go at him.
Right.
But when you get these other guys making plays, very, very impressive.
Yeah, there was a name in that list that I think if Quiddy can reach the level of, then that'd be great. That's Danielle Hunter. And he's a guy it's not viewed, I think, as the elite of the elite pass rushers in the NFL.
Right.
Because he's in Minnesota, it's like, we don't pay attention to Minnesota on the national scale. But listen to these stats that he's had year after year. He came in, had 6 sacks his rookie year. Then after that, 12.5, 7, 14.5, 14.5, 6. And that was a year I think he was injured. 10.5 last year, and already has 5 this year.
If Quiddy
gives
the Colts 12 sacks,
beautiful,
because he's going to give you other stuff as well.
Yes, completely agree. So it's something that I'm working on today. This is kind of a topic that we can discuss before we jump into, I guess, moving forward a bit. That this is kind of moving forward, but this Colts defense and the front 7 can be better if Shaquille Leonard does what he has done in the past. Because right now, Shaq has 18 tackles through 3 games. That's only 6 tackles a game. It's not the most impressive stat line, And he doesn't have any sacks. He doesn't have any forced fumbles, doesn't have any interceptions. So
one tackle for a loss, I think.
That's it. I think you're right. Just one tackle for loss. Now, I asked him in the locker room about this today. I was like, Shaq, look, we've judged you in the past by takeaways. So you get those forced fumbles. You get those interceptions. It hasn't come this year. Is that eating at you, or is that something you can be patient with? And he says, for me, it's a bit of both. And then he went into saying the right words and saying that he has to not try to do too much, which is accurate. You can't go out there and try to overcorrect based on, hey, I don't have any interceptions, I don't have any forced fumbles. I want to play a little bit more
outside of the
scheme to try to get that. That's not what you do. And he's
right.
completely correct in saying that. But I liked his brief moment of honesty when he says it's a little bit of both, that it is eating at him a little bit that this hasn't happened. Now, it's only been 3 games, and these things sometimes come in bunches, as we've seen with Shaq in the past. You get one, and then they keep coming, and they keep coming. But if he can get back, maybe not even to what he did in 2021, which was tremendous what he did. It was, 8.
He had like 12 or 13 takeaways.
It was
on
ridiculous
his
that
own.
he was in on so many of them.
5 interceptions, I think it was.
I think it was 5 interceptions and 8 fumbles. I think it was like 13 that he was
forced
in on
fumbles.
something. Yeah, forced fumbles. So, if he can get back to something like that would be just another added weapon to this defense that has already kind of been turning some heads, I think, so far this year.
But I don't think we should be disappointed with where he's at.
I don't think so either.
I
want to say that very clearly.
I
So,
think
Shaq, don't put me on your bulletin board,
I think we all expected quiet, whatever. But this is the first time he's played really since 2021.
Right.
Last year was window dressing. And so I think he's still sort of getting his feet under him. Maybe the instincts, I don't know. But I think if he keeps giving him this, they'd be happy, I guess, for another couple of games. And then you want more. But I think anyone expected him to be back out there being the takeaway guy. You're delusional because of what he's been through. So I think he's not played because of any injuries or whatever. It's just been they've really kept him out of passing downs for the most part, which is unusual.
Right. It's different than they've
but
done
there's
with him in
another
the
big
past.
reason for that. EJ Speed.
EJ Speed's come and played really
gracious.
well.
He's played well.
That's another thing they'll be talking about on the Purple Zone in Baltimore, on the EJ Speed pass breakup.
Do you think I thought he hooked him?
I thought he gave him a little hook, but that refereeing crew was not calling anything.
Fine, and that's fine. If you haven't called it, don't call it.
They were consistent throughout that game. I will say that. There were plays that I think should have been called.
I missed the one. Was there a face mask?
There was
they missed a huge face mask.
Big face mask.
Yeah.
On I forget who it was, but there was a face mask that was missed. There was a big holding that was missed. That was a to-do up in the press box, and that's all. I'll get into that.
But as long as they're consistently bad.
Yes, exactly. No, they were consistently letting them play.
Right.
And that was a play where it was a little hook. It absolutely was. But they let them play, as they had been doing that entire game.
Pitt had one, too, where he kind of got held back on a pass. And it wasn't quite the same situation, but they let that one go, too.
Right.
So
that was on Zay Flowers, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. That's a receiver.
And also, EJ Speed needs to hook him, or else Zay Flowers catches that and goes 30 yards.
And runs away from you.
So he made the exact right play. He did what he had to do.
Some of the better draft picks and signings. I mean, we haven't talked about Zaire Franklin yet. He's on pace for a zillion tackles.
Syracuse University.
I understand.
Big game against Clemson this weekend.
I'm not going to watch it. Are you going to watch it?
I probably won't.
I'm sure there's something on the Weather Channel I want to watch.
Oh, chap, no.
But no, I mean, Franklin's on pace for 230-some tackles, whatever, and he won't because whatever. But it's really so many times in the past, I won't mention names, the guy has 13 tackles, and you think, I don't remember him. No, this guy makes tackles, and it's really good to see. But like I said, their front seven, the linebackers rounded out, and I'm including Shaq in there. They're just playing at a high level, and it'll give, when you get 12 sacks and you get pressure, it does give your secondary a chance to grow, I guess, and they're just not out there naked to the world for the quarterback. So encouraging. But when Ballard hits on what was Speed, a 5? 5th round pick?
I think so.
Fourth. And Zaire was, as we talked coming in, he was a 7, and you can check it. He might have been after Matt Adams. I don't remember.
I think he might have been the second linebacker they took in the 7th round that year.
And it's just really cool when you see these linebackers late. I'm not going to say afterthoughts, but you're in the 7th round. You're just kind of
you're just
who's
taking
still on our board. You know,
EJ Speed, 5th round pick.
Okay.
Yes.
And they both have gotten second contracts. Mm-hmm. That's you know, those late round picks get second contracts. First, they're not going to be monsters. What was I? 3 for 12, I think, which still pretty doggone good. Mm-hmm. But that's how you build a strong roster, is when you're going to have to pay these guys. You know, in 2 years they're going to have to, next year. They're going to say
Zaire has outperformed that 3-year.
They're going to have to pay
contract.
Bernhard Raimann left tackle money next year.
Hey, they might have a good one in Bernhard Raimann. They might have a really good one.
Again, I've noticed him because he's not getting beat and he's holding up, and he's come eons, as he should have, because they threw him out there when they shouldn't have last year.
Right.
But
he got reps. That's what you need. You need reps.
Yeah.
There were bad reps at the beginning.
Juju was getting his reps in practice, and Bernie was getting his in Denver with no practice
against Bradley Chubb
and on a bad ankle.
Von Miller.
But you know, we've talked about how they've got money invested in non-premium positions. If Bernie is there, if his floor is Costanzo, which it probably is, you're going to pay him. I don't know what left tackles are making, 18, 20.
Yep.
So good for him. And that's how you build around a rookie quarterback. Get that left tackle, and you can't project injuries. But you know, this is our guy. And then you got Pittman, and this is our guy. And then you still need another stud receiver. But to get a left tackle, you go into the offseason and you don't worry about it. You know, you're not saying, boy, well, we could get this guy. No, you've got him. So now you can look at your attention and your money elsewhere, which, again, Bernie has been very encouraging. I hope we're not jinxing him
the jinx on him
for this game. But Baltimore is going to give you as much as anybody does. Pressure. You know, at Kyle Hamilton, which, holy smokes.
The same dang blitz 3 times.
If you got me once, okay. The last
Fool
2.
me once.
And how the heck does Gardner Minshew
not see it? He
not
didn't see
see him
it any of the
coming?
time. Didn't see him any of the 3 times.
It's your peripheral. I realize he's looking all times to his left, but don't you see this train coming in?
I'll say this: Baltimore called it at the right opportunity too, because Gardner's looking the other way the entire time, all 3 times.
And they've got the right side of your line occupied with guys, but holy, dump it.
Yep.
Get rid of it.
Do something.
I just, you know, they were talking, and it's very true. Minshew's experienced, and you know, they're like, he's a coach out on the field, and he's seen everything. And I'm like, he didn't see Kyle Hamilton coming off the right side.
He's seen everything except Kyle Hamilton. Until the last minute.
Hamilton had 2 sacks in his career, and he had 3 in
the half.
Yeah, it was the first half. Yep,
first half.
All in the first half.
All 3rd and long situations, all off that right side.
Yeah, whenever the home team PA is coming on in the press box and giving announcements about stats in the first half, you know that's not a good thing if you're the road team. And that's what they were doing. They were talking about, like, the last time a Raven had 3 sacks, the last time a safety or whatever, I think it was Jamal Adams in 2019 had 3 sacks. And it never happened, I don't think, as somebody in the secondary to have 3 sacks in 1 half in NFL history is what they said.
But all he had to do was run from point A to point B.
He just had to run. That's all he had to do.
And he can do that because he's a great athlete.
He is. And Gardner's not going to be able to shake Kyle Hamilton. No. Like he might be a little mobile, but he's not that mobile.
To Gardner's credit, the first 2 sacks, he was able to hold on to the ball even though he got blown up. That last one, though, you know, the ball did come loose. But as we talked about, thanks to Quentin Nelson and Michael Pittman, that ended up, you know, working out okay for the Colts.
So at the end of the day, the Colts are 2-1. They sit alone atop the AFC South. Anthony Richardson and Ryan Kelly did return to practice on Wednesday. I think they were both full participants in practice. They're still in the concussion protocol. You have to go through that step where you have to get cleared by an independent neurologist.
Team first and then independent.
Right. So that has not happened yet as we tape this podcast.
As far as we know.
As far as we know. Right. They have not announced anything right now. So maybe we get to talk to Anthony Richardson Friday this week in the Colts locker room. That is still to be determined. We will find out.
If the team wanted to stay competitive advantage, they could not, but everyone fully anticipates him playing.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. The Rams are going to imagine that he's going to play. I don't think there's really any doubt. You can claim competitive advantage, but there's no real advantage for that. Also on the injury report, Quentin Nelson and DeForest Buckner did not practice Wednesday or Thursday.
I don't think they practiced last week.
I don't think they did either. I know
Wednesday
Quentin
anyway.
did. Yeah, I think
Quentin didn't
DeForest
practice Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. Correct. So same with Quentin this week. And then he was full on Friday. So we'll see if that's the same process this week. Doesn't matter. Quentin's going to play on Sunday, you think.
And he's playing pretty well.
Buckner's going to play on Sunday, you think. Buckner spoke to us in the locker room today. He looked like himself. And this is what happens with veteran guys. There's no need to have Buckner out there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice. And when resting his groin can do you better.
Is that what he was on there with?
I think
that's what he was listed with, was a groin injury.
So,
and Q's got that toe.
Yep.
And those are injuries that you rest him for 2 days and then you play.
And then it's back to where it was.
And it's back to where it was because
now you got to rest him again. Yep.
That's the NFL, man. And that's something that maybe the average fan doesn't realize, how you can keep the same injury. The older you get, maybe you realize it, because I'm pushing 40 now, so you get to that point. I'm way past my prime, my NFL prime, if it was ever to happen for a 5'6", 140 pound yip yap coming off the edge, So we won't even get into that. But yeah, it's just to work so hard throughout the week to get ready to play, to get able to play. And then you're right back to where you started. In some ways, that's a frustrating week after week reality. But it's the one that pays the bills, and it's the one that is required of you in this league.
And that's why players absolutely hate Thursday night games.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times Thursday's when you start feeling okay.
Yeah.
And here you are playing now.
Yep, and thrown right back into the fire there. Also, Dallas Flowers on the injury report was a full participant in Wednesday's practice, though, listed as a back injury, so we'll keep our eyes on that. Also to keep our eyes on next week when it comes to injuries, big news, of course, this next week, guys, as Jelani Woods can come off PUP.
I didn't know that's where you were going.
Nice swerve.
Hey!
Also true.
Also true. Jonathan Taylor.
Both things can be true.
Yes, Jonathan Taylor can also come off PUP next week, the physically unable to perform list. And, Chap, the rule is you can start practicing, and then you get a 21-day window to be elevated to the 53-man active roster. So basically what it is now, it's a roster exception that Jonathan Taylor is allowed to practice once he comes off the PUP list. So a big week when it comes to the biggest story of the preseason and training camp for the Colts is going to be right back under the microscope next week when the Rams game is in the past.
Well, and the first step on that is passing a physical.
Right.
That's step one, and as I was told and other people, that's not going to be an issue. They think he could have done that in July. And
he's posting videos of himself running around the Colts complex. I mean,
and Shane Steichen kind of gave us an idea of what to expect, because he said, he'll be off PUP in a couple of weeks. Well, he could come off next week,
right?
But in a coach's mind, he's thinking, when might I have this guy? And
right.
They're not going to. There's a better chance of you and your little, whatever your frame is. What did you say it was again?
5'6", 140, something
There's
like that.
There's a better chance of you running the ball in after the Rams game than Taylor. They're not going to do. He hasn't practiced since December.
Aaron Donald would kill me.
Oh my goodness. He would brush you aside like, what was that?
Yeah.
He may not even say what was that.
No.
So I think that the likely time frame is if he passes the physical, is to practice next week, starting with Wednesday, and maybe practice that next week and then play the third week. But he's got to prove that he wants to be here. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that part of this? I don't know. His options are so.
He's got to prove that he wants to be in the NFL right now.
There you go.
And I think that's the best way to put it. And if you want to be in the NFL, you have to play for the Colts.
Deal with your situation now.
Exactly. You've got to be the adult and play under your contract, because.
Not saying he's not been the adult so far.
No, but you have to do it because of your situation right now. And we've talked about this here on this podcast about if you just don't play and you're ready to go and your contract tolls for next year, then you're back in the same exact situation that you were. You need to come out
really worse off.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you haven't
lost
played
a year, and you lost a year of your prime. You're a running back. You can't lose a year of your prime. Like that's the whole point of this.
Right.
That's what they're fighting for. And so he needs to play. He needs to be able to prove that he's healthy. And if he really wants a team to trade for him, then you need to go out there and show what you are capable of doing on a daily basis. And honestly, one of the worst things for Jonathan Taylor is that the Miami Dolphins, who are probably the one team, the most interested team you would think in acquiring him, right now they have the number 1 and the number 5 fantasy running backs in the NFL right now. Because
his addition, they score 80?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly. I don't know. But Mike McDaniel has schemed up that running game to masterful levels. Raheem Mostert, toot boiler up, is the number 1 fantasy running back in the NFL right now. And they have another player who I forget his name because he's a rookie and it's a stranger name, one the chap would only need to know how to spell. Exactly. That's the thing. I forget his name already because I don't play fantasy football anymore.
4 touchdowns. They had 2 guys score 4 touchdowns.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
You know what was crazy about that game?
What was crazy? What was crazy about that game, Chad?
Well, a lot, but 70 points. And somebody posted that owners were upset that they ran it up. First of all, owners don't care.
No.
So I don't believe that. They scored 70 points. They didn't score in the last 8 minutes. And they scored 70 points without a field goal, without a punt return, kick return, defensive. They scored 10 offensive touchdowns.
Offensive.
It's unbelievable.
The great thing was we were in the locker room because that was a 1:00 game too. We're in the locker room just running around to different Colts players doing interviews, and some guys are yelling back and forth at each other about the Miami game. They're like, "Yo, they put up 70. What the heck?" It was funny listening to their reaction to seeing what was going on.
Somebody put a clip of a play from the back, and there might be 6 Broncos on the ground.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Tackle somebody.
Yeah.
So in my mind, the best landing spot for Jonathan Taylor is Baltimore. They could use a home run hitting running back, but again, I've taken this stance that I think they should just trade him, dump him if that's the word you want to use, with whatever you can get. But you still have to have somebody that's willing to do what prevented him before. Compensation,
right.
Even if you lower your compensation. But is Taylor going to go anywhere and just play out his contract, his final year's contract? So we'll see. To me, the encouraging thing is at some point soon there will be some kind of resolution on what is
resolution air quotes right here.
Because once he's active, we're all going to be second guessing or at least looking at everything he does.
Mm-hmm.
Did he run out of bounds because he's protecting himself or whatever? He's not practicing today because of what? So there's a lot of fence mending that has to go on, almost all on his part. And I keep going back to the same thing. Him in this offense would be amazing. He is that good, and that's taking nothing away from Zach Moss. But Moss had 18 carries for 88 yards at Houston. You watch some of those plays, and Taylor would have gone for 50 on a play.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll see where it goes. But we're at least 3 games, I think, from Taylor stepping on the field for these guys in a game.
Well, the first game in the Colts path right now is the LA Rams. They are 1-2. Tied for last place in the NFC West as they stand. Week 1 was a great start to the year. They beat Seattle. When everyone's questioning, hey, how good is Seattle? Whoa, how good are the Rams? They beat them 30-13 too. Really drummed them up there. Then week 2 they lost to the 49ers, which you would expect.
No shame.
49ers,
yeah,
no,
no
which
shame
is one
in
of the
that
best teams in the league. They lost 30-23, so they're within 1 score. That's not too bad. Last week was not a pretty game, as on Monday Night Football, they lost to the Bengals 19-16. And the Bengals are a team that's really struggling right now, too, so not playing all that well. The Rams did not look all that good. Still, to keep 2 teams below 20 points this year, the defense is solid. Aaron Donald's over there. He's always dangerous. Matthew Stafford's been in the league 15, 17, I don't know exactly how many years, but is going to know what to do with the football every time he's back there and how he wants to attack the Colts defense. So they're going to be, it's going to be a different challenge than they've had than they had in the first couple weeks of the season facing him. The last meeting back in 2021 was a Carson Wentz foot injury game.
Had to mention his name, didn't you?
I did. Well, Matt put it right here.
It was in there. I almost did that as the quarterback who shall not be named.
Well, there you go. But his name is there, and that was actually that was a back and forth game as the Rams were about to go on and win the Super Bowl that year. And then at the end, when Carson got hurt, I think it was Aaron Donald even that tackled him. That just kind of it just ended the Colts' chances of being able to do anything.
Who went in the game?
What?
Who went in the game for Carson Wentz?
Jacob Eason went in, right, and promptly threw an interception, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah, and he had a haunted look of a man going out on that field. I just remember that deer in the headlights. It's like, you're going into the game, Jacob. Do I have to, Coach?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the next weekend Carson played on 0 total ankles. In
that was a Tennessee game.
Yeah, so that was the next week. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we're not talking about that. We're moving on.
We start down that rabbit hole, and it's hard to pull yourself back out.
It really is. And it was Matt Gay, in fact, as Matt points out here, that kicked the go-ahead field goal with 2:23 remaining in this game. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Let's take a look at the Rams this year. They're middle of the pack in points per game. They're scoring 23 points per game. The Colts are scoring 24. They're not a very good rushing team right now, near the bottom of the league, 26th in rushing yards per game, where the Colts are in the top half. They're 12th in the league right now.
Which is amazing considering they rush for...
After that Week 1 performance.
Yeah.
Right, and it's the passing game that has led them. The Rams are 4th in the NFL right now in passing yards per game. Matt, and they don't even have Cooper Kupp right now, so they've been able to find it with some other avenues up there. So that's been impressive to see that. Defensive side, they're, again... middle of the pack, 13th in points allowed, 13th in rushing yards. They're 7th in passing yards, so that's been slightly better for them. The Rams have only one takeaway this year, and they're -3 on the season as Stafford has 4 interceptions. The Colts are +2 in takeaways. They have 5 takeaways, only 3 turnovers, but no turnovers since Week 1. Haven't had any in Week 2 or Week 3, so that's a good trend right there. When you look at the offensive and defensive rankings, I don't think there's anything too surprising on that, and of course these things are going to be worked out through the entire season. You look at how teams are playing right now, you usually take it like 3 or 4 game swing. Teams, Chap always talked about quarters of the season, but again...
Then you get that one game that just hangs.
You already made that point today. The 17-game season really throwing you off. So you look at, I think teams will still judge 4-game swings. So this is the last game of this early swing. The Rams are trying to show that they have some of that magic they found in Week 1, and they just kind of, and maybe even Week 2 to hang with San Francisco, just couldn't quite make it the next week with the Bengals. The Colts are trying to prove that the magic they had in Baltimore is something that's real, and that they're not the team, the defense that gives up 14 points in the fourth quarter like they did Week 1, Week 2. So I think this is a game where both teams, either one of these teams, could really can really kind of stake a claim at who they are early on in the season. Obviously, a long way to go, but you look in the grand scheme of things and how teams evaluate themselves at certain points of the season. After this game is one where teams usually take a look and evaluate themselves and from a big picture standpoint.
Yeah, and again, this is when the Colts need to get back to protecting home turf. Their last home win was Jacksonville.
Yep.
In early October, I think it was last year.
Been a year almost.
That was the Alec Pierce catch, wasn't it?
Right.
Yes, it was.
Right. So, and there's something to that. Hey, it's great to be 2-0 on the road, but I use the Cincinnati Reds as an example. They got a losing record at home, for crying out. Take care of it. Normally go 6-2 at home, and then see what split on the road, and then you're in position for something. So, get back and do that, because I think 4 of the next 5 are at home. I think I'm in my week-to-week mode. But as I said, the schedule is conducive to putting yourself in position to do something, whatever that something is. But it starts with come out there and taking care of home turf against teams that aren't exactly at the top in the upper quartile.
The top.
If you can
top
mention
quartile.
Carson Wentz, I can mention upper quartile.
Right. Yes, you can. Absolutely. I'm not putting that past you at all. Go ahead, do it. Let's see here. Matthew Stafford was sacked 6 times last week against Cincinnati. And Cincinnati does have a pretty good front seven themselves, too. And the Colts, like I've said earlier, they have the second most sacks in the NFL. So the one thing the Colts have not done is go up against a starting left tackle, which has been a crazy stat to me that all the first 3 weeks of the season that the left tackle for the opposing team, the starting left tackle, has been out. That'll maybe change this weekend.
Their starting left tackle did not practice on Wednesday.
Oh, my goodness, how about that?
He left the game last week.
How many times have we seen games where the Colts have gone against a team with this guy, that guy out, and they don't take advantage of it?
And it doesn't matter, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to make it matter. They, Houston had, 3 starters out, and they shuffled. Then take advantage of it.
Yeah. The top running back for the Rams is Kyron Williams, and Cam Akers had been their guy for a while, but and then he was their guy for a little while, and then all of a sudden he was in Sean McVay's doghouse forever and just never could get on the field, and they traded him away, in fact, to Minnesota. I think it was last week they did this, maybe 2 weeks ago.
And he was a surprise inactive, I think, in week 2, and then
leading up to the trade.
Yeah. So Kyron Williams has 40 carries, 39 carries, 142 yards, so only averaging 3.6 yards per carry. It's not like he was all that much better, but just the Cam Akers era was done and over with there in L.A. Cooper Kupp won't play. The rookie, what is it? Puka Nacua?
Yep.
There you go.
Yep, Nacua.
He has 30 catches in 3 games, averaging 10 catches per game, 338 yards, though he has not caught a touchdown yet, averaging 112 receiving yards per game. So somebody had to step up in place of Cooper Kupp. You figured it was going to be like that they were going to find somebody.
Right.
And Nacua has been the main guy. Tutu Atwell, 17 catches. Tight end Tyler Higbee has 11 catches.
Atwell's more the big play guy.
He is, yes. They've spread the ball around a bit there, but Nakua's been the steady Eddie, so to speak.
BYU, is that where he's from? I
believe so. Yeah,
BYU 5th round pick, I believe.
They throw the ball around quite a bit there.
They do throw the ball there, and they throw the ball in LA too. When you have Stafford there, and your top running back is averaging 3.6 yards per carry, and the Colts this year they're averaging giving up 3.5 yards per carry. They're one of the top 10 teams in the league in rush defense. So you got to figure, chap, that it's going to be resting on the arm of Matthew Stafford and not exactly the legs of Kyron Williams. If the Colts are going to stop one thing, they've got to be able to stop Stafford if they want to win this game.
And again, that's you always hear us run the ball, stop the run. A lot of times we roll our eyes when they do that. But defensively,
it's not wrong, yeah.
No, but defensively, if you can make somebody throw, and I think the more you make Stafford throw, the more you got a lot better chance of getting to him because he is gettable, as you showed from the 6 sacks at Cincy.
Right.
So again, I feel I don't know what the Colts are going to do offensively because I just don't know, which I think week to week we're not going to know with Richardson back in. I think you feel there will be splashes at the game that are pretty good. Mm-hmm. Defensively, I just think I know what you're going to get, and I think which is normally good. And again, if you've got a front 7 like these guys have got, and then you get Juju and the safeties are playing pretty well, it's that other corner you're a little bit concerned about. Mm-hmm. But, I think this is a good matchup for the Colts.
Yep. On the defensive side of the ball, it starts with Aaron Donald, for sure. 11 tackles and 1.5 sacks is not that great for the year, but it takes one game. Like we've said with Shaq, it takes one game for him to get back to form. And if I had to pick one player that would get back to form, it's the guy who's been healthy. It's Aaron Donald. Should be just fine. And he's gonna put the interior of this Colts line to the test. It's going to be tough on Quentin Nelson with his toe injury. It's going to be tough on Ryan Kelly coming back, trying to get back involved in the game after his concussion. It's going to be tough on Will Fries.
Did Will Fries go back in the game?
Yes, he did. Go back in the game.
The
yes,
cramps.
he went out. And then he came back in. Okay. So yes, I remember. He came back in pretty quickly too. I don't know if he was even out for a full series, if I recall, because I remember making a note
the line
of it.
has played well.
Yes,
it's played well.
Yes.
Forget about Kyle Hamilton. That's a scheme thing and a quarterback thing. Mm-hmm. Played pretty well.
Yes, I completely agree with that sentiment. Let's see. So it's pretty close to DeForest Buckner's stats. Buckner's doing a little bit better, like 13 tackles as opposed to Donald's 11, 2 sacks to 1.5, 3 tackles for loss to just 2. So they're right now they're very similar stat wise in what they've been able to produce on the field. Linebacker Ernest Jones, their leading tackler with 28. Also safety Jordan Fuller has 19. Linebacker Christian Roseboom has 16 himself. So those are the top names to watch for when the Rams defense is out there and is out there on the field. And Chap, kind of like you mentioned, with the expected return of Anthony Richardson, you would expect it to be a slightly different offense than we saw in Baltimore, and also alluding to what Michael Pittman Jr. told us in the locker room just today as we tape this podcast on Thursday, that he hopes to be pushing the ball downfield a little bit more.
He's seen the game plan.
I think he has.
He knows what they're working on.
Exactly. We haven't seen the game plan, but he's seen the game plan. Yes.
Yeah, it's funny. If you really listen, these guys tell you what
reading
to
between
sort of
the lines.
expect.
Yes.
Again, we were talking Wednesday, and we all expected Richardson to play this week, but two players said, yeah, it's just really good to have him back. Not like we hope to get him back. That it's good to get him back.
Like he is back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's now the thing with Richardson is he's going to give the Colts more explosion and more, game-breaking things, but there's going to be more risk involved.
Mm-hmm. More variability.
There will, right? Which is we've said all along going into the season. There's going to be mistakes.
Yeah, can we put something to rest here? By the way, like Richardson is the Colts starting quarterback.
Good Lord.
I don't want to have a discussion on this because I don't think this topic is worth a discussion. But I do need to. But I think we need to point it out because it's at least been a stupid debate point.
Bill
of this
Cowher.
week. Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be hard to go back to the.
No, it's not. It's not going to be hard at all.
Did you actually watch that game?
No.
I mean, I know the Colts won, and Minshew did a good job of pretty much taking care of the ball, but
I still haven't
there
come up
was
with a
not
better
much
game than efficient.
He was the perfect backup quarterback in this scenario.
Correct.
He did not lose the game, and he almost did with to be fair.
The fumble and the
exactly.
and the jump ball to.
But for the most part,
safety.
he ran the offense. He moved the ball a little bit. He got you enough. He did what you asked of him. You were never down by like 2 or 3 scores where you tried to unload it too much. Like he played a defensive type battle game.
But they needed 4 50-yard field goals.
Exactly.
And a bunch of defensive stops.
You're right. So let's not overinflate what he did
Correct.
either. And that's all we're going to say about that situation because Anthony Richardson is the Colts starting quarterback.
And it's not to take away from Minshew.
No.
We're just saying Richardson gives you some dynamic play that you just cannot get from
right.
Gardner.
And he needs reps is what the Colts have said all year.
And he's their first round
pick. He's the fourth
overall pick.
Yeah, he needs to be out there. Rams injury report for this week. Tyler Higbee, the tight end, did not practice on Wednesday with Achilles injury. Matt, as you alluded to, starting left tackle Alaric Jackson with a hamstring injury did not practice on Wednesday. That is something certainly to watch out for. We will follow that online on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone. You can follow us there for news and notes throughout the week. And Mike Chappell's work online, fox59.com, CBS4Indy.com too. He's at mchappell51 to follow him there. Ben Skoranek and Puka Nacua, the wide receivers, were both injured. Skoranek did not practice on Wednesday with an Achilles injury. Nacua had an oblique injury and was limited on Wednesday, but Matt, as you note here, he's been dealing with this for a couple weeks, so it's not like this is a new thing, and he's been productive through that injury, so that's nothing that the Rams are going to be worried about, you think. Their starting right guard, Joe Noteboom, had a knee injury, but was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, so still, if there's one position that you want to have the backup, it might be that left tackle position, so that's the one that we're going to have all eyes on this week, as the Colts host the Rams at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. If you're in central Indiana, it'll be broadcast on Fox 59. The Colts are favored to win. From what I've seen, it's like 1 or 1.5 points right now.
I saw both today when looking
depending
around.
on what you're looking at. And I think the over-under's at like 46.5 or 47. So they're anticipating a 23-22, 24-23 ball game is what the professionals say. We fully anticipate Anthony Richardson and Ryan Kelly to play because they were both full participant in practice on Wednesday. It would take a really strange path forward for them not to be able to get a clearance from an independent neurologist after having a full practice on Wednesday.
And Richardson, he was at the game Sunday.
He was right there on the sideline.
Normally, don't you think if you're in concussion and you've got symptoms, you don't put him on a plane?
I would think
I don't know.
so.
Maybe I'm way off on that.
I don't know. No, that's what I would think.
Next time you see Will Carroll, ask him that.
I might do that. But hey, that is online right now, the discussion I had with Will on fox59.com. So be sure to check that about his latest article that he did for FanBuzz up there.
I was just going to say, I did like the fact that he went with the team and he was engaged in the game, going over talking to Minshew and Ellinger about what they're seeing and that kind of stuff. I really... It's part of that learning process, and even though he couldn't play to get the reps, I like that he's still mentally in the game.
So let's get to our predictions for this game. I'll go first. Matt, you go second.
I always go last so you guys can steal my score.
Exactly.
Go
Well, do you want to go first?
Okay,
fair enough.
Right ahead.
Okay. Oh, great. Then I'll go. I can see this game going either way, but I'm going to be positive this week because I think there's a lot of reasons, like I said, at the very start of this podcast, to be positive about this Colts team. I think the defense is playing really well. I think that getting Richardson back could be a good shot in the arm. I am not scared about anything on the Rams defense except number 99, which is a big one to be scared of. Let's be perfectly honest.
If he makes 4 plays, he can blow the game up.
Exactly. He's like J.J. Watt on those Houston Texans defenses kind of later in his career with the Texans. Like he was definitely the big ticket on that defense, but you looked across the entire rest of the roster, like, who is this? It's T.Y. Hilton going and schooling and being the clown, wearing the clown mask against nameless cornerbacks there in Houston, and so yeah, I think that's a really good comparison. So we'll see what Donald does. He could wreck the game. I'm not putting that beside him, but nothing on the Rams' offense is super scary. Nothing on their defense except for Aaron Donald is super scary.
Cooper Kupp would scare you.
Yes, absolutely, but he's not playing.
Right.
So you feel better about that. So I'm gonna take the Colts in this game. I'm gonna go by a final score of 22-16 is my prediction. The Colts get the win. They get their first win at home under Shane Steichen. They have a good momentum building, 3-1 after 4 weeks. So you feel really good. I think if you're in that building and you go 3-1 after 4 weeks, you feel absolutely exceptional about the start to the season and what you've been able to do. Even with Richardson missing a game, him coming back and getting a win here in their first home win in this era. So that's my prediction. Colts win 22-16. They keep building some momentum moving forward. Matt, what do you think is going to happen?
Man, it's really tough for me. I'm just going to go. I do think Steichen's building something here. Schematically, I think the Colts have had an advantage with him behind the helm. I think they're a much better coached team than they have been in the last few years. I don't think they're going to have a letdown this time. I'm kind of afraid of that, being that they're a young team. But I'm going to go ahead and push my chips to the middle of the table with the Colts winning this one. I'm going to say 30-24.
Chap.
Okay,
That's big points right
no
there.
one stole my score.
Hey.
I've got 27-24. Colts. Good
right.
guys. Good guys.
The good guys.
Because again, in years past, and I don't mean to dump on Frank or whatever, but this is the game I would expect him to lose. Because you just had the big win at Baltimore and everybody's feeling goody-goody, and then you come out and you don't play well at home against a team that at the very least you're even with. But I do think Steichen has already got his fingerprints on this team, how they approach it. I think any new coach, if you're any good, for the first couple games, for the first couple years, you're going to have the players' attention. I think he does. Let's just have Matt Gay kick that game-winning field goal for the Colts this time instead of the Rams.
There you go. It'll be the same story. Matt Gay kicks game-winning field goal inside Lucas Oil Stadium.
55 yards. What's his career? How long? 56 or 58?
I'll tell you.
I think it was 58.
Okay. Yeah. All those that were low 50s had plenty of leg. Like they all hit like
right down the middle.
It might have been not high on the uprights, but it was halfway up the uprights. Perhaps like Justin Tucker's would be way up there, like at his best.
We need to get in blackout mode again.
Exactly. And the conditions weren't that great. They weren't perfect out there because it was wet, it was muggy, so that everything is heavier out there in the air. It's tougher to push a ball through wet, muggy air. But they did it, and it was perfect. And like I go back to what Rigo said in the locker room, Rigoberto Sanchez. Like the second he heard it, like you're just looking down.
It's funny how you can tell
it.
that, but you can.
Exactly. Like you heard it, and he knew it was going in. That like he didn't even have to look. Like you could tell just by the sound it made coming off Matt Gay's foot that it was going in. Yep. So the Colts are certainly thrilled to have a kicker that is reliable.
Even if you think they shouldn't have paid him that much money.
And I made that argument. I made that argument on this podcast.
You weren't by yourself. You weren't by yourself.
Exactly. And he's going out and proving why. Why are they doing this? Well, because
he may win you 3 games in a year instead of lose you.
Exactly.
3 games in a year.
We've seen kickers here who will lose you 3 games in a year.
Let's not mention his name because he's a Hall of Famer.
Exactly. Like we don't need to. But he was the best kicker to ever step foot on an NFL field, and he might be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That'll be up to you and everyone else to next year when he becomes eligible. But that's a story for another time because we've already gone on well longer than we usually do here on the podcast. But there's plenty to discuss here. So we appreciate you listening. We will see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast after the Colts wrap up this weekend against the Rams. Take care, everyone.